as well. So, and he pardoned his own son. So they have no moral high ground on any of their arguments, really, but especially not this one. And a key point for other, Republicans that may not be as educated about what happened on J6, because they might be thinking, well, okay, maybe the violent people were not good. Maybe they made us look bad or this and that. But you have to understand, those people that day, their whole purpose of being there was to stop a crime. Okay, so in their mind, these officers are you could say, complicit with the crime because they're stopping them from stopping the crime, and they're like supporting these criminals. So if someone was violent against the officer and they were arrested and charged, which shows that they're not a Fed, agent provocateur, that's a whole nother subject, then they should be pardoned because they were trying to...
Marty doesn't think that men could be women, so I wouldn't be laughing.
Yeah, they shouldn't be charged.
Yeah. God bless you, your middle finger, buddy.
Peace and love!
Exactly. Love you too. Enjoy the improved economy. And so all these guys should be pardoned. And there's a couple people that we suspect might be feds. Ray Epps, John Sullivan, John Barry. But the thing is, they're not even doing prison time anyway. They might have been hit with like a slap on the wrist charges here and there, but they never went to prison, so that pardon wouldn't even affect them anyway. But anyway, and just another point about the feds, being there that day. If you remember, when Christopher Wray was being questioned in Congress, I think it was actually in the Senate by Ted Cruz, was one of the most viral moment. Ted Cruz asks Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, he's like, were there undercover agents at January 6th? And Christopher Wray goes, I can't answer that question. And then Ted Cruz goes, okay, hold on. Was there any federal agents that were involved in violence on January 6th? And then Christopher Wray goes, I can't answer that question. And then Ted Cruz goes like, oh, okay. So was there any federal agents that were involved in violence against police that day on January 6th? And Christopher Wray again says, I can't answer that question. So if he can't say no to that's like, you should be able to say no if it's a no.
It's a yes, that's why.
Yeah, because it's absolutely, there were. And I think it's been reported that throughout all the different court filings, over 150 federal agents have been identified that were in the crowd at various points that day. And now there's videos coming out of them, like fake Trump supporters going back into the police line and saying, hey, I'm with you guys. I was, Ray Epps is very suspected to be one of those people. Because think about it. So one of our activists from here, Gina Bisignano, okay, all she did was she used the megaphone and said, we need more patriots, okay? Freedom of speech. She never entered the Capitol. She got 11 counts for that. Charged with 11 counts. What did Ray Epps do? He stood outside and said, we're going inside the Capitol. Same conduct. He got like one slap on the wrist, misdemeanor charge, and he's not even going to do time for that. Okay? So if that disparity of treatment tells me there's something definitely going on with Ray Epps, because regular people who did the exact same thing that he did got the book thrown at them. Okay? And another thing, so on my way back from January 6th, I did an interview with InfoWars, okay, on Owen Schroyer's show. And I told him, so at that time, we thought it was Antifa that had infiltrated. And it turns out that actually Antifa and the feds were working together. This was revealed by Millie Weaver's work. She actually infiltrated what was called the Sunrise Movement Zoom calls, okay? And they are various leftist groups with some federal government people that work with them, all planning exactly what we saw on January 6th, taking over the buildings, fighting with police, pretending to be Trump supporters, okay? So when I gave this interview, we had assumed that it was Antifa that had infiltrated, because a lot of them were, technically, but they were working with the feds. So before I got to the window, where I stopped one of the guys from breaking the window, who, by the way, was never arrested, neither were his little group of window breakers right there. The other Trump supporters had already detained one of these window breakers, and he was actually using a sledgehammer to try to break the window, like an actual sledgehammer. They crowd surfed his sledgehammer away, and they had him held up by like all fours. And I walked past them, And I'm looking at this guy, and I see he has like a little beret hanging out of his pocket, right? So I told him, like, put his hat on. They put his hat on, and he just looked like a total soy boy. He wasn't even trying to dress as a Trump supporter. You know, like a French postmodernist style leftist. And so later that day when we went home, we were able to find on Instagram a video of this guy, his name is John Barry, admitting that he was paid to protest, that he couldn't pull off the act, and that it's an organized effort, but he can't say who it is. Okay, so there's a video of him admitting that. So for anybody that says, "Oh, it's just a conspiracy theory," it's like, no. You can hear it from the horse's mouth right here. This guy was breaking the window with a sledgehammer. He was caught. He admits it on video. And he was never arrested. Okay, just like all these other guys that are feds, they seem to be dodging justice. Like I just watched a video the other day on a guy. They call him Red on Red. So he's wearing a red hat and he's a red jacket. And he seems to be everywhere, just like Ray Epps seems to be everywhere where all the action pops off. You know what I mean? So he was right there when Ashley Babbitt got shot, right next to John Sullivan, definitely a Fed who recorded it. And then he actually breaks a window with a 2x4, and then Dominic Pizzola, who's a Proud Boy, who's a real patriot, joins in on that. Okay, afterwards, after Red on Red broke the window, they charged Dominic Pizzola and give him like 18 years or something crazy, way overcharged. And then this guy who initially broke the exact same window never gets charged. so it's just crazy, like the disparate treatment. Person, okay? If you guys remember the Seattle Chop Chaz zone where they took over American city blocks, I consider these people like, yeah, exactly. The enemy combatants on U.S. soil, I would consider them. They should be shot on sight, in my opinion, when they do that. But yeah, they're real domestic terrorists. They took over like 4 city blocks or whatever, and they built barriers, right? Which is totally illegal. I always call it a 3-tier justice system, really, because like if you're a patriot, right, they'll go after you, they'll throw the whole book at you, and they'll overcharge you and try to destroy your life and fight you to the bitter end. If you're like a leftist activist or like a neocon, you know, a rhino, they will charge you, but it'll be like way less severe. But if you're like a high-level Democrat, like a Biden or Clinton, you just seem to be, you can do as many crimes as you want, and you're completely immune from punishment. It's like insane. So it's 3 tiers, really. And yeah, it's disgusting. Like we need to put a stop to this. Trump needs to not buy into this argument about retaliation and this and that. It's like, ignore the left media, dude. No matter what you do, they're going to find a way to hate you. Just do what you know is right. Blind justice. Protect America first. We don't want to have like infinite proxy wars to start World War III and bring all the troops home, put them on the border. Let's stop the illegal immigration first, and then we can talk about everything else. You know, when we talk about like things that are hurting Americans, right? The fentanyl crisis, hundreds of thousands of Americans died. That's like a genocide. So let's stop that first before we talk about funding Ukraine or funding this or funding that. We need to clean up our house first. And of course, when it comes to pardons, just the last point about that, and I'll take questions. If anyone wants to ask me questions, I'll take questions from you guys about the pardons. So what we need is it's called a pardon of innocence. So the only person who ever got that in modern times was General Flynn, actually. General Flynn, Trump gave him a pardon of innocence. What that does is it clears all your charges. Because a regular pardon, it's called a full pardon, is not actually a full pardon. You have to. It's an admission of guilt. So your charges don't go away. Your sentence goes away, but you still admit to guilt for the charges. We don't want that. We want a pardon of innocence for every J6er. So all of our records are completely clear, so we can go back and find jobs, we can, file our lawsuits and get them actually involved in politics without having this on our record anymore. So that's what we're calling for, is a pardon of innocence for every J6er, and then, investigate the feds for what they really did that day. So yeah, that's my message for today. We'd like, take questions if you guys want.